I don't know. What should I?
No, I think Good evening. Oh, wow. Good evening. There we go. I'll do it one more time. Good evening. I want to welcome you to the ARC, Town Hall Education, Arts, and Recreation Campus, located here in Ward 8. My name is Rasan Bernard, and I'm the president of Building Bridges Across the River. Building Bridges Across the River has been building bridges here in this community since 2005. Building Bridges Across the River has been building bridges in this neighborhood since 2005. Our first metaphorical bridge to this community is this campus that you're sitting, this campus that you're on today. At 16.5 acres, 203,000 square feet of building space, 14 nonprofits in 5 sectors: health, education, arts, recreation, and workforce development. We are the largest social service, multi-sector, nonprofit collaboration in the country. I can say that really, really fast, but I'm not going to do that today. This campus served as the first metaphorical bridge of several bridges. Our second bridge was our food access bridge. As many of you know, we have a farm on campus here and several urban farms across the city, totaling about 8. Our newest urban farm is at Nat Stadium. And we've been aggregating produce, providing food access bridges to this community. We also have a workforce development bridge. Our organization, Building Bridges Across the River, runs the Skyland Workforce Center, which has worked directly with the Bridge Park on many of our construction trainings. That bridge has been in the community now for 7 years, and we are happy to announce that we have placed our 1,000th person in employment. So when we ran out of metaphors for building bridges, we decided to physically build a bridge. The first elevated bridge park in the nation's capital, the 11th Street Bridge Park. You should be clapping right now. This park is more than a physical edifice. This park represents the mission and theory of change for our organization. Our North Star is to see a city that has barriers to social and economic mobility removed. Our desire is a more equitable city, and this park, for us, is emblematic of that. This park for us is a community trust model. This park for us is a community mutual trust framework. This park for us stands for everything we believe in at Building Bridges Across the River. So much so that this morning, when we received the great news that the Commission of Fine Arts approved our project, you should be clapping again. The most notable piece of that news was 3 commissioners on that panel saying the work of engaging the community is unparalleled over the last 10 years. We have put the community at the center of our work. And our desire to bridge communities and build opportunities is something that we have more fervor today than we've ever had. So I want to welcome you again to our campus at the Arc and to Building Bridges Across the River. I have the pleasure of introducing our next speaker. We have from the mayor's office, Tim White, who's the director of equity, and he's going to share how the Bridge Park aligns with the mayor's vision for an inclusive east of the river economy. Tim?
Thank you. Good evening. I'm excited to be here today. I appreciate you all giving me the invitation to speak on behalf of the Bowser administration and to talk about how the work to build wealth, help small businesses and create opportunities east of the river. My name is Tim White, as he said. I'm director of equitable development and I'm your neighbor here in Congress Heights. And I have the pleasure of overseeing the Food Access Fund, as well as small business bond program, as well as several real estate projects east of the river, including the townhomes that are coming to the Anacostia Metro. And so with those projects, you know, the mayor and what she's trying to achieve aligns so much with what Building Bridges is doing by trying to help underserved communities, as well as create a fair shot for all residents. You know, we talk about housing. That's always been one of the mayor's top goals. And she created the goal of creating an additional 36,000 housing units and 12,000 affordable housing units by 2025. And so we're 66% of the way there, and 50% of the way there on the affordable housing side. But we know that partnerships, like with building bridges, will only increase that supply. And so that opportunity will go for residents east of the river to be able to see what we want to see in terms of home ownership. Because we know that when we increase the supply and we reduce rents, we allow for residents to be able to have that access and create that opportunity. And so, the partnerships that they've done with their home buyers club to allow residents to be homeowners, and over 100 residents being able to become homeowners. Programs like the Black Homeownership Strike Force that look to see what the stark contrast is in the city when it comes to home ownership. When you couple those efforts together, we're able to achieve what we want to see. He talked about the work with food access. The mayor has created the $73 million food access fund that is bringing resources towards 7 and 8. We look forward to, in very short order, celebrating restaurants that are coming to historic Anacostia and grocery stores that are coming to across the street at the Skyland Workforce Center to be able to see that Lidl opening up here very, very soon. And so this work that Building Bridges has done, it cannot be understated how important it is for all parts of the community. The mayor created the commercial acquisition fund to help small businesses to be able to succeed and have home ownership, or to own their property the same way we've done with home ownership. But we know that access to capital to be able to own your building and to be able to have the resources to operate your business, that doesn't happen without all of the partners. Building Bridges has invested over $1 million for our businesses here in Ward 8, and we know that those dollars and that work will allow for our residents to be able to work and live in their area and be able to sustain themselves. And so, again, I thank you all for the opportunity here to speak in my own neighborhood, but also just to be here to congratulate Building Bridges on the work that they're doing here and being able to celebrate this large milestone here with Leonard Street Bridge Park. So thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Scott Kratz. It's my great pleasure to be the Senior Vice President here at Building Bridges Across the River. And for the last 10 years, lead the effort working with you all, working with the community to realize this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to physically and metaphorically bridge two communities. This is a larger project. It's a wonderful example of a public-private partnership working with Building Bridge Across the River, where you are today, and our partners at the district government. So thank you for those kind words, Tim. And we specifically have been working for the last many years with our partners at the District Department of Transportation to realize the Bridge Park. So what we're going to do tonight, we've got some great new renderings to share with you. We have some really exciting progress to share as we're reaching 100% design after 10 years. We're 100% design, right? It's been a journey, my friends. It has, with the community with us at every step of the way. So we'll share you some a progress update. Share some renderings with our design team. We'll then invite Vaughn Perry, our Director of Equity here, to do a much deeper dive into all of our investments, not only in the bricks and mortar of building the park, but the investments in the nearby neighborhoods, the residents and the communities through our nationally recognized Equitable Development Plan. And then finally, most importantly, we want to hear from you. Community feedback and community engagement has been a core pillar of this project from the beginning. So hold on to your questions, comments. We'll have you queue up at the microphone here because we are live streaming tonight. There's a lot of folks who couldn't necessarily be here tonight, but are watching us on bridgepark.org/live. So it takes a village to put together a project like this. There's been many agencies, many ANCs, lots of civic associations, a ton of partners, many of which that you met out in the lobby tonight, that have been working diligently over the last 10 years, hand in glove with us to realize this community-driven vision. And I'm going to very quickly, I think everybody probably knows most of this, but just level set, provide a little context for the project. And In our case, we had 10, 15 years ago, this real once in a lifetime opportunity when the old vehicular bridges that connected the neighborhoods of Anacostia and Fairlawn with Capitol Hill and Navy Yard were reaching the end of their lifespan. Instead of getting rid of all the old infrastructure, we asked, well, what if we could extend that initial federal investment and instead of and replace the vehicular bridges with a community-driven new civic space? From the beginning, these have been the four key goals that have really animated the project, sort of four table legs that the project has stood on from the very beginning. The goal that I think most viscerally connects with local residents is that, you know, the river has been there's been this artificial dividing line for generations. How do we create this physical and metaphorical bridge between communities? We also know that the residents along the Anacostia River have some of the most challenging health statistics in the city. How do we create new access to fresh food and access to healthy recreation? Engaging residents with the sometimes forgotten and hidden treasure known as the Anacostia River, and really bring people down to the river. We've done a tremendous job of building as many barriers as we can between humans and the waterfront. How do we bring people down to the river and inspire that next generation of river stewards? And right, let's have a clap for a little Anacostia love. Finally, and Vaughn will really be touching on this, how do we make sure that the thousands, tens of thousands of residents who've helped shape this project from the beginning can be the ones that benefit from it. To date, we've invested over $86 million, not in the construction of the bridge, but in the nearby neighborhoods through our equitable development strategies. That's kind of unheard of, right? I mean, it's almost the same amount of money as it's going to cost to build the park has already been invested in this community, right? There has been a core critical issue, and core tenet of this project. So from the beginning, this has been driven by you. It's been driven by the residents. We've held over 1,000 meetings with the public. We stopped counting when we got to 4 digits, but for design and impact at every step of the way. And local residents suggested all of the programming elements that you're going to be hearing about tonight that's been baked into the design, these sort of 7 key programming areas. And when we launched the design competition in 2014, local residents, participated. We had about 3 dozen local residents participate in what we called our design oversight committee that reviewed our design brief before a single architectural or landscape architect or even engineer saw the competition, sort of rule book. And they met with our 4 final teams, giving iterative feedback during the process. And at the end of this 8-month-long competition, they made a formal recommendation to our jury for the design team that you're going to be hearing about tonight from OMA and Olin. Much of this work is how do we put decision-making power back into the hands of local residents, right? Because at the end of the day, this isn't the Building Bridges bridge. This isn't the district's bridge. This is your bridge park. All of this work continues, and we have lots of opportunities coming up for you to continue to be engaged. Next Wednesday, we are having the last of our summer monthly walking tours. So it'll be September 21st, I think, or it's whatever Wednesday is. I'm hearing a nod. Yes, 21st. We'll start at the Capital One Cafe right at the corner of Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue and Good Hope Road at 5:30 p.m. Give a quick overview and then walk the 3 blocks down to the river. There's more information on how to sign up at the back of the table. We have a survey that we'd love to have you fill out tonight. And more information on all of this can be found at the back of the table. We invite you all to come back on October 8th for our 5th annual Taste of the Harvest event. It is so much fun. Come back for live music, for a number of Black entrepreneurs. East of the River Black entrepreneurs are going to be here on site. We're having music, the theatrical performances, and we end with our ever popular s'mores roasting over an open fire. So it's a free event. It's a really beautiful event, and it's a way to celebrate all of our Bridge Park plots all in Southeast DC. And finally, we encourage you to sign up for our email blast so you can hear about sort of all of our events that are coming up. So With that, I'm going to turn things over to Jim Gunther from Whitman Requart and Associates. That'll be followed by Jason Long from OMA, the architect for the project. That will be followed by Hallie Boyce from Olin, the landscape architect, and finally Vaughn Perry, our director of equity, to talk about our equitable development work. With that, Jim.
Thank you, Scott. Welcome, everyone. So as Scott alluded to, we began this journey with working with the existing conditions adjacent to the 11th Street local bridge with the existing piers in the vicinity of the Navy Yard and the Anacostia Park area. Obviously, looking at everything that this project was going to encompass, the blue that's highlighted there is really our project area of impact that we're looking at from a standpoint of all of the structures, all of the roadways, all of the pedestrian and bicycle routes that are going to be impacted from this project. The 11th Street Bridge, when it was taken down, was replaced on the two piers adjacent to the navigable waterway with overlooks. Those overlooks will be removed along with the pier shafts that are there and replaced with new structure that will hold up the proposed bridge park from that perspective. So where are we? Well, we completed our initial 95% design in June. We are progressing and finalizing our 100% design with the intent to be able to start soliciting for a general contractor by the end of this year and moving into construction in 2023. One of the big efforts that we've been doing is working through the coordination with all the agencies. And as you heard, today we made our first major step in that with CFA approval for the project. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jason.
Hi, everyone. Can everyone hear me? Okay, so I'm Jason Long with OMA, and I want to tell you, of course, a lot more about the design of the park, and then I'll be followed by Hallie Boyce from Olin to talk more about the landscape. So this shows a map, obviously, of the general area, and you can see here, this is the 11th Street Bridge Park, or the future location of the 11th Street Bridge Park. We and Scott and everyone have been working to ensure that it's easy to access the park. They're identifying key parking structures around the vicinity where people can come and drive, but also be drop-off, of course, immediately adjacent to the park on both sides. There are also bus stops on both sides of the river, as well as access, of course, from the Anacostia metro station. Zooming in now to the plan of the park, this shows pedestrian access points, and we've been working to ensure that there's a host of different ways to walk up onto the bridge park and around it. So you can see here that coming down Good Hope Road, we've been developing a plan for the so-called terra firma, or the area really on the ground on this side of the park, to locate a new amphitheater and a series of paths and even an artwork that greet people as they come up onto the bridge park from both Good Hope Road and also the Anacostia Drive. And there are access points that are accessible, meaning you can go up on a wheelchair even, but then there are also stairs as well. And the same is true from the west side of the bridge, where coming down 11th Street, you can immediately access kind of adjacent to the current access point for the Navy Yard, but you can also come up the Navy Yard walk and then either go up a stair or then come up the path as you go around. This shows also a series of the bike routes. So we're also interested in people, of course, coming by bike and passing through the bridge park by bike. There's currently the pedestrian and bicycle route on the 11th Street local bridge that'll be maintained, and we hope also be the main route for people really trying to make a fast journey across the river. But we'll also have a wide path, a 15-foot wide path, that will provide space for both pedestrians and bicyclists going across the river, and there'll be bike parking and also access to Capital bike share as well. We have two bridges next to each other. One's primarily vehicular, the 11th Street local bridge, but there is a sidewalk, and we want to make sure that people can connect from one to the other. So especially at either end, but also in the middle, there are two access points at various points at these 2 points along the bridge. First at the entry just adjacent to the Hammock Grove, and then here further down, an accessible entry from the 11th Street local bridge adjacent to where the cafe and the cafe Porch are. Obviously, the structure is very important for a bridge, and we've been working from the beginning with WRA to make a bridge that can be simple but also iconic. It's an X shape that allows for a series of trusses to be built here between the bridge piers, making a fairly lightweight and efficient structure, but also making a kind of multi-layered park that provides space both above, between, and even below different program areas on the bridge. The two kind of paths that form that X shape are each on a 4.7% slope, which doesn't really probably mean much to people, but it's a slope that's not even a ramp. It's a kind of gradual slope similar to the slope on the 11th Street local bridge today. But there are a number of flat spaces, of course, all across the bridge, the Cafe Porch, the different overlooks that I'll show you later, where people can rest and take in the view. Here you see an image of the overall bridge park, and I'd like to use this image just to locate the main spaces for you before I then explain it in a bit more detail. So here's Good Hope Road. As I mentioned, there's a series of paths that can bring you up from Good Hope Road, where you pass by the outdoor amphitheater, and then up onto the bridge park, passing the Environmental Education Center here, and then also this building, which is called the CUP, the Central Utility Plant and Storage Area that also houses urban agriculture. You then pass on to the bridge, past a kind of void where you can look down onto the Environmental Education Center Plaza, and then past the 21st Century Play Space being designed by Oland with Studio Ludo. And then here, the Cafe Porch and Cafe, which are underneath the Anacostia Lookout and the Great Lawn. Between in the middle of the over the overall bridge is the Central Plaza, flat space where different kinds of events can happen. And then up above here, the so-called Capitol Lookout, where there's a path that leads you up to an area where you can look to the west. And then going down, there's a hammock grove, and then the heavily landscaped entry to the park from the west. Oh, and there's also a kayak launch. So here you see that as a general plan looking down from the top. So where you're mainly looking at the so-called upper decks, where you see the Anacostia Lookout and the Capitol Lookout, but also the Central Plaza and of course the amphitheater. Here, this is a plan view showing you the lower decks. So underneath those upper decks, where you have the play area, the cafe, the Central Plaza, and the picnic garden and hammock area. There are three buildings that are integrated either into the bridge itself or into the land. The cafe and community building, the Environmental Education Center, and the Central Utility Plant. And they're, of course, surrounded by landscape and other natural activity areas like the kayak launch. So this shows you a view where you're on the bridge, on kind of the east side of the bridge, just next to the westernmost part of the play space. So this is a kind of play structures here. And you're on the south side of the bridge looking at the river on your left. And here is the cafe and community porch. So the cafe we located underneath the Anacostia Lookout and located a kind of plaza area adjacent to it where people can come and eat, of course, food from the cafe, but where all kinds of different things can happen. And also an area that's shaded so that in the hot DC summer, there's a place where you can hang out where you're not just kind of baking in the sun. This area has a floor of wood and a ceiling that's actually an acoustic material so that it can be a multifunctional space that's also very inviting. The cafe itself is formed from two main areas, kind of support area on the north side with the kitchen, restrooms, and other support spaces. And then on the south side, looking downriver, a main dining room and community room that are actually connected together but can also be used separately. So here you see a plan of these spaces. So there's about 2,400 square feet between these two main rooms. And again, they can be used as one contiguous space, but they can also be separated so that there can be community events at the same time that people are using the dining room. And here you see that covered porch, so 4,000 square foot area that can be used for all different kinds of things. And this is all underneath the Anacostia Lookout and the upper deck where there's also the Great Lawn. So this red line here is the area of the cafe below. And this Great Lawn actually serves as a green roof of the cafe itself. So here you see a view of the cafe and community porch and also the materials that we're planning to use. So primarily the wood that forms the deck here. Again, we're imagining all different kinds of things could happen here, from fairs to performances to just hanging out. And we included an acoustic treatment from this acoustic wood fiber panels. This is a sustainable source of an acoustic treatment that's also quite durable, that forms the ceiling for this space. The other building is the Environmental Education Center. So this building is located kind of within the entry point to the bridge, but it actually hits the ground. This will be the home for educational programs led by the Anacostia Watershed Society. And so we wanted to place it not only on the bridge, but also on the ground so that it has immediate access and connection to the river itself, because a lot of what will happen here is orienting children to the ecology of the river, but also taking them out onto the river itself. So you see here the lower level where there's a series of steps that can bring you up to the plaza and access the Environmental Education Center. And then here you have a hint of the upper level, which will actually house the offices for building bridges across the river and the Parks Administration, but also a ranger's office. So this is a view of the upper part of the Environmental Education Center and also the so-called cup, which, as I mentioned, has on its roofs urban agriculture and also provides a kind of place for a lookout looking downriver just after you come across the 11th Street local bridge. Between these two buildings, there's a plaza space and also a rain garden. And the EEC has on its roof both photovoltaic panels to generate electricity, but also a large scupper where rainwater is collected by this roof and then brought down into the rain garden and ultimately collected into a cistern. Here, a view now a little bit more onto the bridge, looking down through this void in the bridge at the main Environmental Education Center plaza, where there's a large so-called flex hall that actually spills out into the plaza. And here you can see on the upper level the Bridge Park offices and the ranger's office, which will be there on the left. This is a bridge that connects across, and from this bridge you can actually look down into the Environmental Education Center, but also get direct access to Bridge Park services. So here you see these two buildings together from an axonometric view. So the two levels of the Environmental Education Center, and then also the different urban agriculture terraces on the cup. And here, the plan of the Environmental Education Center. This is centered around this main flex hall where students can be brought in and given orientation before being brought into this classroom, which can be divided into two for different kinds of use or housing multiple student groups at the same time. But that flex hall also spills out onto the main plaza and is connected to a gallery that can be used for different educational purposes, but also can be open to the public. And then on the upper deck, there are the park offices, but also the ranger's office as well. Here you see a view of the north side of the Environmental Education Center. The EEC also houses some of the park's restrooms, public restrooms, and this green grading material here steps up to mark the entry to that location. The roof of the EEC will be clad with a kind of zinc material, so I think there's a lot of warmth and presence of natural materials all across the bridge. Here, a view on the main plaza of the Environmental Education Center. We're using a series of doors here that can open up so that when the weather permits, there can really be a kind of connection between inside and outside here, and a more immediate access for the Anacostia Watershed Society and their students to the river beyond. Within the EEC, this flex hall will be used, as I mentioned, together with the gallery space that you see here, to really bring a new experience of the river to children throughout the community. And we've tried to work on the design of the interior of this space to make it a warm, inviting place. It's welcoming to children, but also to adults. Here, a view of the same space looking back towards the main classrooms, where we have a large felt wall that will hopefully have a kind of dramatic mural that showcases the ecology of the river. And then here, a view of the central utility plant. This is a very functional building that houses mechanical equipment and also some storage, but on top it provides a space for the community and building upon everything that building bridges across the river has done with urban agriculture throughout the neighborhood. And here, the plan of this space, this is where all the rakes go and the storage. Not very exciting, but on top, we think that this will be a great benefit to the park. On top of the two upper decks, there are two lookouts, the Anacostia Lookout and the Navy Yard Lookout, and in the middle, a central plaza. So the Capitol Lookout is on the west side. It frames the spaces that are below it, where there's the hammock grove and the picnic garden, but it provides a space, a route for people to go up and then look back across to the west side, to the Navy Yard and the Capitol as well. The Central Plaza will be a space in the middle of the whole bridge where different kinds of events can take place, looking out over the river. And the Anacostia Lookout, which is at the end of the Great Lawn, provides a view back out to the east, looking down also to the EEC and the Amphitheater. And then here, a view looking upriver of the whole of the bridge park. And with that, I'll hand it over to Hallie.
Thank you, Jason. Can everyone hear me? Yes, great. I'm Hallie Boyce Olin, partner, and we're from Philadelphia, but it's always wonderful to be back at the Arc. Thank you all for coming. I'm just going to step through some of the aspects of the landscape now. Okay, sure. Thanks, Mon. The 11th Street Bridge Park is a multifunctional landscape which works to provide an array of opportunities for members of the community who help vision the park and regional visitors and possibly visitors from around the country to engage and explore the Anacostia River, to learn about its health and the importance of its health to the health of the neighborhoods adjacent to the river. Working with Jason and Oma, their team, Olin has been working to create a series of outdoor rooms in the landscape, such as the amphitheater that you see here, this green gallery where the Jackson Jarvis Studio work of art Sunset Sunrise will be located, a play area, hammock grove, and then on the upper reaches, as Jason noted, the wonderful lawn that has tremendous views. So these are all places for people to relax, gather, learn, and play. We've used plantings, woodland plantings, meadow plantings, and kept lawn to a minimum for the really active areas to really reflect what the river plantings used to be historically, and to also provide the Anacostia Watershed Society in the Environmental Education Center with a setting that allows them to provide a learning landscape, opportunities to recreate, but also learn about the river environment and its ecology. This is a working landscape. We capture, cleanse, and reuse stormwater here in these two cisterns, both west and east. And we reuse the water for irrigating the plantings on site. So it's a closed loop system. It's also, again, a learning landscape for the Anacostia Watershed Society. This meadow, for instance, is a pollinator meadow. And so it gives AWS the opportunity to interpret not only the plantings, but the insects, butterflies, and other pollinators, birds that are attracted to this type of planting and habitat. It also is a major hub and connector between the two river trails on either side, and this happens to be a half loop running track, as Jason noted, so I'm going to expect everybody to get with that. So opportunities for people to walk, to run, to hike, and then actually get out on the river in this kayak rental that will also be managed by AWS. This is the view. I'm going to take you for a brief walk across the bridge. We're starting at the Navy Yard. This is the bridge here, the Navy Yard wall, and the path that goes down to the river. So we're going to take the path up to the Central Plaza that you can see here in each case where I am on the site. This is that path down to the river's edge between the Navy Yard wall and the plantings and trees above. And as we move to the east, then we slip up on this accessible path. The whole bridge is accessible, and all of these paths to it are accessible, meaning they're less than 5%. They're 4.76% in most cases, and easy for those with mobility challenges to access as well. And this has a wonderful threshold here, of course, on your way to the Amphitheater and Central Plaza beyond. But we've been working very hard to have trees wherever possible so that the trees provide critical shade in this environment here in DC. We know it can be very hot, particularly in the summer months. And so really the trees and the structure together will provide those moments of shade from one side of the river to the next. This is a bird's eye view, really. You're on the upper deck looking down at the hammock grove. So this has more intimate spaces for people to gather, have lunch, meet a friend. And there is an artist who is designing the hammocks, which is going to be very exciting to see. So they won't be just your average hammock. They'll be very special and unique to the Bridge Park. As you move up past the Central Plaza, there's this flexible lawn space. And I think many of you probably know, if you've ever walked across the 11th Street vehicular bridge, it has spectacular views of the sunset heading, if you're looking to the west, towards Yards Park and the Navy Yards on the right, historic Anacostia on the left, but the beautiful colors and reflections on the water at that time of day is really spectacular. As you come back down from that lawn over around Jason's Cafe and Porch area, we have a wonderful play area, and Olin's been working along with OMA, and Studio Ludo is a play designer from Philadelphia with whom we've worked many times, and they've done a wonderful job in helping us vision this portion of the site, as has the community, because we've gotten wonderful community input from the beginning. It's themed around, we're calling it Muscle Beach or Muscle Power Play because of the Anacostia Watershed's wonderful muscle program that's been so successful, putting into the bottom of the river over 10,000 mussels that have helped to cleanse the water and will continue to do so. It's a very successful program. So this play area, while physically engaging with climbing elements, there's slides on this side, some wind chimes and other things to engage the children's senses, will also be a teaching tool for AWS as well. As we come over towards historic Anacostia, we have the wonderful River Amphitheater, which is meant to be a green respite, a shady spot with trees on its southern edge, casting shade, but a wonderful place for community events, performances throughout the seasons, throughout the year. And as you can see, not only a beautiful, very dramatic view of the iconic bridge, but also of the lovely water and river beyond. And at the water's edge, the kayak launch will it'll be managed by AWS, and they will take school groups and other visitors out on the water, but the public will have the opportunity to rent a canoe or a kayak as well, which we think will be spectacular. And then this meadow, which wraps around the amphitheater, and we'll have seasonal blooms at various times of year. And we see this as a wonderful, again, opportunity to interpret. These meadow plantings help infiltrate stormwater. They create habitat, of course. And while they are not no maintenance landscapes, they do reduce the maintenance because you're not mowing it over and over like the lawns elsewhere in Anacostia Park. And then finally, this is the entrance from historic Anacostia. There's a drop-off and bike share here. This is Good Hope Road. And then to the right is that wonderful sculpture by the Jackson Jarvis studio team with a view of the bridge beyond. And here it is, a more close-up view, really wonderful because it picks up on the landscape and talks about the passing of time. And then just quickly, as Jason noted, we're using very durable materials for the paving. It will be concrete pavers, an array of cool grays that are very durable and will wear well. We have concrete walls both at the west side and also on the east, adjacent to these stairs, and then also along the 11th Street vehicular bridge. But on the bridge itself, we have proposed the low Corten planter walls, which have a warm coloring to them to be in keeping with the wood at the cafe. And then there's wood seating at the amphitheater, and also, of course, the typical decking that you see adjacent to a water's edge at the kayak launch. And this just gives you an idea of those paver colors, the wood, the Corten here, and then the cast-in-place concrete. So the pavers will really give it a wonderful texture and feel. It gives you more rhythm to the people moving over the paving, and it will also help reinforce that idea of the two paths coming together and culminating in this Anacostia Plaza or Central Plaza. Here are those different colored pavers. This is the main plaza color, and then this rougher texture paver will be used around the border of the cafe. And as for the planting, we've worked to create a much more layered landscape, trying to incorporate as many trees as possible, 196 trees, both on terra firma here, but also on the deck itself, and then back again on terra firma, because of the need for critical shade to improve air quality and provide seasonal interest. But then likewise, we have that wonderful meadow landscape and river plantings adjacent to the kayak launch as well. This just gives you an idea of some of the tree plantings that we're proposing, oaks and maples, sweet gums, black gums, willow oaks, red oaks, things of that sort. And then also the smaller trees like Allegheny serviceberry and eastern redbud that have such beautiful spring colors in particular. And then the shrubs have both wonderful fall color, but also even in wintertime, there will be interest with the red twig dogwood that's so vibrant at that time of year, or the winterberry holly here that's around the Christmas and holidays. And the meadows, we have a mix, it'll be a matrix of wonderful grasses that will always be present, and then these perennials will pop up throughout the seasons at various times. So it'll always have that wonderful green, lush feel to it. And then some of these meadows are in shadier areas, so we've got a little bit different mix there. And then we have the buyer retention. These are the real workhorses of the planting plan, because they help to cleanse the water directly in the buyer retention basins that we have at the bottom of the hill. And then likewise, some ground covers in the shadier areas. And now I'm going to turn it over to Vaughn Perry, the Director of the Equitable Development Program.
Thank you, Hallie. Good evening, everybody. I'm Vaughn Perry, the Director of Equity here at Building Bridges Across the River. And I need to start here. Wow, it's really happening. And I say that as a proud Ward 8 resident. I can remember, I guess it was probably about 7 years ago now at the time, I was working with the Anacostia Watershed Society, and this guy named Scott Kratz was coming in to do a presentation about what I used to call this mythical bridge park that, you know, he wanted to bring over to Ward 8. And I sat there and I watched this presentation, and in my mind, with all of the cynicism of a Ward 8 resident, because of all of the broken promises, I said, that is never going to happen. Come full circle, here I am, and I'm looking at these amazing designs and how we're at 100% design. Yeah, thank you. We can clap about it. Because I don't want to miss this moment, right? Like, I think we can miss the moment of all of the work that had to take place just to get to this point. And so for me to be able to get to this point and to be a part of it is just amazing, right? Like, I can remember when I was younger, like going to, like, walking along the World Gorge or driving across the Golden State Bridge. But this is my part, right? This is something that I can call my own, and something not only that I can say is a park that is in my community, that's built for my community, but something that I had an opportunity to help to influence and be a part of. And so again, I say that not just because I work here, but because as a resident here in the community, I was able to have a voice. And so when we start to talk about our equitable development strategies, it's so much more than just a park. This is about how can we make sure that the residents that live here can benefit from the resources that are going to come into our community. It's so much more than just a park. We were looking at our numbers, and I wanted to write it down because I didn't want to mess this number up. And 88% of our non-personal expenses for the year 2022 are all going to the equitable development strategies. That's about $770,000. We're not talking about what's going into the bricks and mortar, but that's just going into that. These are all funds that are going directly back into the community. And so I think it just shows the intention that this just isn't about investing in a place, but more importantly, it's about investing in people. And so when we start to talk about, like, you know, this isn't just about a park, but it's about the people and the people that live in those communities. And so from the very beginning, it was important for us to really look at statistics with what's going on in the community, right? And for us to build a baseline around, like, if we know that certain statistics are in the community, we want to create some strategies, and we want to make sure that these strategies are working, but we need to be able to measure them against something. And so we worked early on with the Urban Institute, who went and did a number of studies, and they looked at things like the median value of homes in west of the river and east of the river. They looked at things like the unemployment rate. They looked at things like renter occupancy. But one of the things that I really want to point out is this number right here, child poverty. And so west of the river, it's about 16% child poverty level for residents in west of the river. But in the east of the river community, it's 50%. Now, I want you to think about that number for a second. Oh, almost 50% of DC children live in east of the river communities. And 50% of them are at a child poverty rate. That's a staggering number. And that's why it's so important for programs like our Thrive East of the River program, which I'll talk about a little bit later, but was able to provide financial assistance to Ward 8 residents. It was able to provide weekly food. It was able to provide monthly home goods to community residents. And so again, one of the things I would be remiss to say is, it's not just about how can we provide resources, but also how we put decision-making control back in the hands of the community. And so as I talk today, not only will I be talking about the resources that are coming to the community, but I'll also be threading in how these decisions were made by the community. And so again, from the very beginning, it's been a community-driven process where we work with the community, where we had these town hall sessions, where we wanted to get their feedback, where we wanted, if you don't hear anything else that I say today, remember this. We believe that the answers are always in the community. The solutions are always in the community. The solutions are always in the community. But it's incumbent on us and any other community organizer to go into the community and listen, and to hear from the community what are some of the problems that they're identifying, but more importantly, what are some of the solutions that the community believes can resolve their issues. And so once we heard those solutions, we said, all right, great. Now we can look at resources to help to bring those solutions to pass. And so the manifestation of that is what's called our Equitable Development Plan. It's about 40 plus strategies that focus on categories like housing, like workforce, like small business and cultural equity. And I'm just going to give a few examples of some of those strategies within those categories. And first of all is our housing strategies. It was important for us early on to look at to get some early wins, right? Some of you all have been a part of city planning processes, and where you go and you're giving your feedback, and everybody, they put together these amazing plans, and then oftentimes those plans sit on a shelf and just collect dust, right? We didn't want that to happen with this Equitable Development Plan. And so it was important for us to make sure, as we were getting the community feedback, that we were getting some early wins in implementing some of these strategies early on. And so we did a lot of that work with our housing strategies. We work with great partners like the Housing Counseling Services. One of the things that really stood out from our community meetings was a need to stand up some permanently affordable housing. And could we stand up a community land trust in the city? So we worked with the City First Homes to stand up the Douglas Community Land Trust. Since that time, the Douglas Community Land Trust has become its own 501c3. They have they have 223 units of affordability in their portfolio. That's a clapping moment. These are units that are going to be able to remain affordable, not just for my generation, but for my children's generation, for their children's generation, and generations to come. What that means is DC residents, generations of DC residents can continue to afford to stay and be DC residents if they choose to be so. Another thing that's really important, I mean, you might have met some of the MANA folks that were out tabling, but we've been working closely with them. MANA has been doing amazing work and creating homebuyers clubs across the city. And what we did was partner with them to say, hey, you all are already doing this amazing work. Can you come and do something like that right over in Ward 8? And so we've been working with them over the last 5 years. And since that time, they've had over 1,000 people to come through a Ward 8 Homebuyers Club. They've had 104 people to purchase homes in that Ward 8 Homebuyers Club. That's another clapping moment, right? And so while that 104 number might seem small when we look at like the housing crisis that we face here in DC, it doesn't seem small to Robin McKinney, who went from homelessness to home ownership and was able to present her children the gift of a home for the last Christmas, right? And so for people like that, it is an amazing story, and it's an opportunity to transition folks from renters into wealth creation. And so we've been able to support programs like MANA through $50,000 just as, over the last few years, $50,000 in closing costs assistance, and another $56,000 for down payment assistance to support those programs and people that have participated in the program. And then we have our workforce strategies. I don't know. Listen, I'm sure I'll be preaching to the choir when I talk about, like, oftentimes when we have parks that are coming up or developments that's coming up in the community, one of the major things we want to make sure is that there are people that are from the local community that's being able to work on those projects. And so it's been really important for us to make sure that that's going to happen. And so from the time I've been here almost 6 years, and from the first day I've worked here, it's been talking to workforce development organizations. It's been telling the community, these are the jobs that are going to be coming. These are the skills that the people are going to need in order to work on these jobs. It's been working with our sister organization or our sister programs, the Skyland Workforce Center, and they've already conducted 25 trainings to really to train local residents in first aid and CPR and flag certification, so that they can be able to apply for these positions. Once it, Scott already mentioned, like, we're already at 100% design. That means the next step is we're going to be able to put out a solicitation for a general contractor soon. And once that general contractor is selected, we'll be able to present to that general selected a database of locally trained folks that have experience, right? Where we've been able to track them, and we've been able to send them through training and then put them into and place them into full-time employment positions, and so that they can get skills, so that we can say, hey, general contractor, we don't need you to hire folks from outside of our community. We have people right here in the community that are trained. And so it's something I'm really proud of with the Skyland Workforce Center and all of the amazing things that they're doing. It's also my pleasure tonight to announce two new initiatives that we're doing that fall in our small business enterprises. And one is a small business preservation pilot. And so, in partnership with the Anacostia Business Improvement District and Booz Allen, we are going to be supporting 10 businesses in Anacostia. Booz Allen is going to be providing $50,000 worth of technical experience, where they're going to come in and those 10 businesses, and all of those are Black-owned businesses, but those 10 businesses are going to be able to match with a Booz Allen volunteer, and they're going to be supporting them things and how do they do grant writing and the back of house bookkeeping and things like marketing. And so just looking at ways to create these strategic business plans and to help to support these businesses through the process. But we also are able to give all of those businesses $8,000 each to really to look at whatever their needs are and to use those resources in order to support those businesses. And so that program will run over the next year. We're looking for some amazing successes to come out of it. And not only that, but my hope is that it's only the beginning this year, and we can continue to build on that and maybe look at 10 other businesses next year. But then also, we have another amazing program that's getting started, which is our small business kiosk. And so, again, we had some community residents select the River East the Design Center, who is the organization that's creating our small business kiosk. And so basically what it is a cart. And what's going to happen is every month we're going to have a different business be able to set up shop in that cart and to really to try out their products and to see how their products are going to do in the community and to really to promote their branding. And so again, like, another amazing opportunity to support Black East of the River businesses and to really to just allow them to grow some of the small businesses in our community, in the hopes that once the park is built, we'll be able to learn from these experiences. We'll be able to learn from these small businesses. We'll be able to learn what is it that the community wants on the park. And so we'll be able to, we'll hit the ground running once the park is built. And finally, our cultural equity strategies. And for me, this one is really personal, because what this is about is how are we making sure that we are amplifying the voice and the power of the community, right? And that could show up in different ways. It can show up in artwork. It could show up in festivals. It could show up in dance. It could show up in the spoken word. You've seen the design earlier, but we had a major art commission, in this yellow area is where we're going to highlight some of the amazing work from local artists. And so this is an example of the artwork that was just commissioned. These are DC residents. It's a Black mom and daughter combination. They were selected amongst a number of different proposals that were put in by local artists. And so this is the art structure that won. It's called the Anacostia Sunrise Sunset Portal, and it will be featured on the park. But then also we have other art installations that are going to be commissioned, and this is just some examples of some of the work that you'll see on the Bridge Park. Also, it's already mentioned, please save the dates. October the 8th, come out and celebrate with us for the Taste of the Harvest. And then next year, May the 20th, again, please come out and celebrate with us as we celebrate with all of our other friends for the Anacostia River Festival. I talked a little bit about Thrive earlier, and what I would say about that was Thrive was the product of an intentional collaboration. I think it shows the importance of being able to pivot with the community, right? And what happened was we were intentional about, we wanted to make sure that we worked with some of the other nonprofit organizations that were right here in Ward 8. People like Bread for the City, Far Southeast Strengthening Collaborative, and Martha's Table. And we came away with this great idea to offer non-conditional cash transactions to residents right here in the community, right? And the reason that they were non-conditional is we wanted to make sure that the residents had the power to make their own decision over their resources. And what came from that is, and we started having these conversations before the pandemic, but then the pandemic hit and we were like, man, we need to do this so that people not only can survive the pandemic, but they can thrive through the pandemic. And so over a year, we were able to raise over $4 million. So about $3.5 million went into Ward 8 family, into East of the River families, providing things like financial assistance. So each family had received $5,500 of financial assistance. They received weekly groceries. They received monthly home goods. And so really just looking at ways that we can continue to support them. But again, this wouldn't have happened had we not been really intentional about our collaboration. And so, which brings me really to our final slide. We cannot do the work that we do without the relationships that we have, without our partners, without community residents, without the local municipality, without small businesses, without other nonprofit organizations. And so from the very beginning, our equitable development plan was meant to be an organic document. It was never intended to just be static and, to never change, but it was intended to change as the community changed. And just like with our second version of the equitable development plan, where we added the cultural equity strategies, and our third version of the equitable development plan, we're going to be adding a health and wellness component. But not only that, it's also going to be looking at, so if we were to do this all over again, it would be, how do we make sure that we are really intentional about advocacy? And instead of creating a whole advocacy component, what we're going to do is integrate our advocacy strategies into the four existing components, as well as into our health and wellness strategies. We want to look at the existing strategies and we want to assess, are they working? Do they need to be changed? Are there things that need to be moved out? Are there things that need to be added? And so the only way that we can do that is with the support from the community, the support from our partners. And so my final call to action for everybody is, if you want to get involved, reach out to me, vaughn@bridgepark.org. vaughn@bridgepark.org. Email me. You can be a part of an advisory committee. You can give us feedback on our existing strategies. You can give us feedback on strategies that you think we should be a part of our next version of the equitable development plan. We want to be able to hear from you so that we get it right. And so, again, thank you all for all your time tonight. I appreciate it. And I'm going to give the mic to Jessica to take us to our next steps. Thanks so much, everybody.
So I would like to invite the panel back onto the stage. If you have questions that you would like to ask, please make your way to the mic over on this side. And we will be happy to start the question and answer portion of this. And while we're doing that and waiting for people to join us, First, let's just give a round of applause to, I don't know, I almost felt like I was in church just a little bit with Vaughn with all his excitement. But let's just give a round of applause for all the work that has happened and things that have gone on here. So as I said, we have someone here who is ready to ask a question. And as we're about to get started, if you want to continue to engage with us, which we hope you do, we hope that you will sign up for our email blast. We continually give weekly updates on every little thing that happens that's exciting to us, at least, and we hope you find it exciting as well. But we give these weekly updates so that it's not just once a year where you're getting information on what's happening with the park. It also reminds you of different opportunities to engage with us. So if you have any questions, we do have staff at the table in the back who can assist you in staying connected with us.
Hi, good evening. My name is Brenda Jones. I'm native Washingtonian and a lifelong resident of East of the River. I was very impressed with everyone's presentation. Thank you very much. I do have a thought about the cafe. Is the cafe going to be ran by one entity? Like somebody who just is, I want to suggest that you have something similar to a food hall, because we're going to have so many diverse people coming through there. Just to have one place with sandwiches or, you know, whatever. Just make sure we have a variety of food. That would also bring people, you know, from both sides to the bridge.
Thank you for that. Would you like to respond, Scott?
Sure. It's great to see you, Ms. Jones. Thanks so much for coming out tonight. I think that's a great idea. We don't know who the cafe operators will be. We're making sure that we have utilities that are run there, of gas and power and electricity and all of that. But I think it's a wonderful idea. We're building out a shell, and then we're figuring out who the operators might be. I think, though, this also is a great opportunity for these small business kiosks that we have, because we see once the park opens that there could be multiple sort of kiosks that are all running up and down the park. And one could be positioned at the community front porch. Another could be at the Anacostia Plaza. Another might be down on Anacostia Drive next to the amphitheater, right? All selling very different types of food, from, you know, District Smokehouse or Busboys or Mama's Pizza or whatever it might be. So that's a great suggestion. Thank you.
I hope you consider.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening. My name is Karen Seibert. I'm a Ward 7 resident. Two questions. One, as the construction begins, I assume that a large portion of the park is going to be restricted. And I just wanted to know what the plans are around that. The park is a really verdant, very soothing respite, and construction can have a major impact on that.
Yes, I think one of the big things that we've been making sure that we're working with is understanding how we're going to maintain pedestrian and vehicular traffic through that area. As you know, as we're going to be building significant structure through this area, the Anacostia shared use path that goes along Anacostia Drive is going to be open. It's going to be maintained to be open throughout the construction, except for when there's significant structure over Anacostia Drive when they're doing the construction during those days. And they will be doing detours up onto the local bridge from that perspective. It is going to be disruptive, but we're going to be working to make sure that we always have access throughout the area.
Okay, great. Thank you. Secondly, I guess this is more of a comment than a question, but we've seen how the city has been has a very concerted effort in terms of eliminating free parking. And I'm just hopeful that we can ensure that the park, there's lots of free open parking in Anacostia Park now. I'm just hoping that we can ensure that that's maintained, that because we have people coming in from outside, that doesn't automatically mean now we have parking meters and the lots that are there are no longer accessible to residents. So.
That's a great comment. We work very closely with the National Park Service. We just had a brainstorming session yesterday, as a matter of fact, with Superintendent Morrison and her entire team. And I don't want to speak for Tara, but I can guarantee you that the parking that is in Anacostia Park will remain free, will remain open. NPS has no plans to certainly that I've heard of charging for any of that. There is too that we want to make sure that when we hope that people come by bus, by metro, by bike. I mean, half of the folks that when we have our Anacostia River Festival and bring about 9,000 to 10,000 people down to the park, half of those people do not come by car. They come by metro, they come by bike, walking through the neighborhood, which is great. But we also know people are going to drive here, right? And we want to make sure, I live at 9th and I Southeast, right? I want to make sure that that parking, it's not impossible for me to find street parking in my neighborhood. Same thing for Farallon and Anacostia. And so we are working with 2 existing large parking lots that are already there. There's one behind Maritime Plaza. It's at 12th and Water on the Navy Yard side of the bridge that has an 885 spot parking garage that's there. That's busy Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, but nights and weekends when we would need it, nobody, right? So that means that we don't have to build a new parking lot, and it is right there. We're also talking to a similar smaller size parking lot east of the river. So again, that we can have as little disruption as possible for the nearby neighborhoods that are the nearby. I was just speaking to Commissioner Clark from ANC 8A about that very issue just last week. So
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I would also like to add that National Park Service, they will be starting back their listening sessions and having input from the community at the redesign that they're doing at Anacostia Park. So please, continue to reach out to them and get information from them as well, because they are looking for input on how to use the space in the park.
Awesome. 2 questions. One, on the structure, it looks like you all mentioned the area right now that is kind of the wilderness structure or space right there in the Anacostia Park between Good Hope and is there a plan to kind of create that space otherwise? Because right now it's a protected refuge area, and there are a bunch of deer, at least 4 or 5 deer that live there. And I just have a concern about us taking that space away and taking away their home, 1. And 2, you all talked a lot about the water cleansing methods that you all are having, a lot of the plant life that are going to work. And I appreciate the water pollution, but can you all also talk a little bit about what you all are doing about solid pollution and making sure that we're preventing that solid pollution from all of these businesses and things that are going to be going on from also going directly into the river, and what the additional structures and plans that you all have to prevent that pollution from entering in the river?
So the first question regarding the wetland, which one would someone like to take that?
So I'll start. In the area adjacent to the existing bike path that you have coming down from the local.
I run it every morning.
So that area from that area over to the river is basically where the majority of that construction is going on. That's basically the limit from that perspective. So everything to the east of that location is not to be disturbed. We do have a little bit of disturbance up towards the local bridge from that perspective. Everything to the west will be replanted and reconstructed from that perspective as we're doing the construction to make the new pathways, as well as put in the landscape and the cisterns that we've been talking about. So there is some that will be disturbed and some that will not in that location. With regards to the solids pollution from that perspective, obviously we've been working with Scott and our team to make sure that we have an understanding of how we're going to do trash management throughout the entire area. We've been working with Anacostia Watershed Society to make sure that we understand, how they're going to use that as a teaching moment as well with regards to that, and making sure that we have adequate facilities to be able to handle that trash management. Been working with Scott to make sure that we have a plan in place for operations and management of that on a daily, almost hourly basis from that perspective, depending on what's going on at the park. So that is actively being done to be working through that. And we're also looking at making sure that we can integrate that into the teaching moments with Anacostia Watershed Society.
So just a quick follow-up on that. So you mentioned east of that bike path, nothing would be disturbed. So right now there's that utility access point. So it's like the truck path, and then there are the cement or I don't know what they're not cement, but they're like gravel in like barbed wire and stuff that blocks water and prevents runoff. So essentially what I'm hearing is that tall grass space will all disappear and there aren't any plans to replace that. Is there a possibility of engaging with the National Park Service and asking that another area be designated for that? Or, I mean, I understand that we're bringing stuff, but I just keeping that space as much as possible and keeping the resources and the points that we have there where possible. Is that a possibility that we can do in engaging the National Park Service?
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, I think the area that you're talking about, that sort of triangular plot of land between Good Hope Road, Anacostia Drive, and the freeway, the on-ramp right there. As Jim mentioned, everything from the path towards the on-ramp that's outside of our area. And actually I'm going to get a little in the weeds here, but there's a right of way for DC water because there's a huge ventilation shaft that's there that you wouldn't necessarily know, but that goes down into these giant sort of metro-sized tunnels that are down there. Everything, there will be the meadow, the pollinator meadow that Holly mentioned, as well as the river amphitheater that's going to be down in that spot. But to your point, we work very closely with the National Park Service. We have a 5-year cooperative use agreement with them to make sure that they are a huge partner every year with us with the Anacostia River Festival. So I will be happy to take that message back to NPS and make sure. I run down there Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and often at sunrise, I see those very same deer that you're talking about, like hanging out in the meadow. I've seen foxes. I've seen
Tons of animals are over there.
What's that?
Tons of animals are over
Tons of animals, wild turkeys, it's really amazing. How do we make sure that we can, in that larger ecosystem, we can maintain that habitat too? So, yeah, great point.
Thank you.
Hello, thank you for the event this evening. I'm curious about whether there will be a smoke-free policy at the Bridge Park. Will it address combustible cigarettes like traditional cigarettes, electronic cigarettes? What about cannabis? And of course, cannabis is illegal at the federal level, but more state and local jurisdictions are legalizing it or decriminalizing it. And of course, for some people, electronic cigarettes, for adults who already smoke, for them, it might help them with their program to basically with their smoking cessation programs. And then other people, say that, or perhaps they need cannabis for medical reasons, and then others, they want to use it for non-medical reasons. So I'm just curious, what can the public expect in terms of like a smoke-free environment or not?
That is a great question. And I don't have an answer for you, but that's a great question. I think there are a lot of, many, if not most parks in DC, I don't know this for sure, but are smoke-free. And I'd imagine we'd follow that, but we'd have to give that some thought, and we'd have to talk to the larger community. I mean, my knee-jerk response would be that we are promoting health, and so whether it's certainly traditional cigarettes, that's not really promoting the health, but that's something we're gonna have to look at.
Yeah.
So
I'll also add, there's a youth vaping epidemic. So
Yep.
Middle school, high school age kids, there's an increased use in those products even over traditional cigarettes. So I think it's just something for your group to consider as you move forward with your planning.
Yeah, no, that's a really great question. I think it's really, as I'm thinking about this, it's two things. It's we designate this as one is sort of designated in the policy, and the other is how do we enforce it in a way that continues to be an inclusive space. So but that you raise a really good, this is exactly why we have these community meetings. So thank you very much for that
I'll just
question.
add one other thing, because as I'm listening and thinking about it, people of color and then also lower income people, they are disproportionately exposed to involuntarily exposed to, secondhand smoke and so forth. So as you kind of consider the health equity issues, again, I just think this is something that maybe you should look at.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
If we have another question, and while he's making his way up, I would like to just do a quick plug that we actually had an article that came out in City Lab that that shares about our work towards health justice and the work that we're doing in that. So there's an update that has been provided, as well as highlighting the aspects of the park that help fight the health injustices and environmental injustices that have impacted our community. City Lab today.
Good evening. I'm Joe DiGiorgio. Will this project require a PLA?
We are currently working with the district to ensure that we are working through determining that. PLA is a project labor agreement with regards to the construction requirements. And we are currently working with the district and the procurement office to determine the needs for this project. So that's still in the works as we work through that process.
Okay, and I'm assuming the percentages are still in the works as well?
Correct.
Okay, and then in terms of procurement, will that be kind of coordinated through DDOT?
Yes, DDOT is the procurement office.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, my name is Leona Rosenblum, and we live over in Ward 6 on 11th Street and G. And we're so excited about this project and really exciting to hear more about the plans. We were just wondering about sort of the larger pedestrian access from the Capitol Hill side. You know, we walk down 11th Street all the time to go down to the Navy Yard path, and we use the current bike path on the vehicular bridge, and it's great, but it's kind of the way the highway was built to kind of cut off a lot of the city. It's still kind of a dead zone for pedestrians with the Navy Yard wall, kind of nothing there, and then the highway on the other side. So is there any vision around improving that sort of pedestrian corridor up into Capitol Hill, or how is that conversation going?
That's a great question. That is my route coming down from 9th and I as well, so I know exactly what you're talking about. You're sort of wedged between a freeway on-ramp and a Navy at a defense base wall. So I'd say three things to that. One, we worked several years ago with the Capitol Riverfront bid and the Navy Museum to create those giant metal murals that pull from the historic collection of the U.S. Navy Yard to try and soften that just a little bit, and was able to raise some funds along with the Capitol Riverfront bid to do that. But that's not going to necessarily solve it. Two, there are plans afoot right now within the District Department of Transportation to create a protected bike lane on the down 11th Street, the up at least to I all the way down to the bridge. So a protected double lane. I'm going to get my bike infrastructure terms wrong, but that should significantly help that, because again, I bike over that on a pretty regular basis, and often the cars queue up on O Street, right, and not always watching where they're going. And three, there are plans in the work right now. There's an environmental impact statement that's out to do a land swap with the Navy for a large corner of what is currently the Navy Yard, O Street, to the little canal that sort of comes out on the river. I think it's about 6th Street, or 7th Street, down to the river to have a mixed-use development that's down there. And if that happens, that means potentially the security wall could come down. You could have a much more sort of integrated space that's in there, and work to sort of soften that experience. But that space needs a lot of, still needs a lot of assistance and needs a lot of help. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I mean, I think we just would love to have, it be pedestrian accessible. You were talking earlier about the car access on the other side and parking, but I don't think we want to encourage everyone to drive from the west side, because there is such good pedestrian and metro and bike access. It's just that last strip over there. So great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, you can come to the podium. If anyone has any final questions, please do come and stand at the podium and wait. We're 1 minute after 8, and so we do want to just be respectful of you all's time, but we are happy to answer questions.
Hello, my name is Cedric Jenkins. My question is pertaining to small business enterprises. I know it was spoken of that there were some businesses that will be identified to be a part of the project. Have those businesses been identified, and what type of businesses are they?
So yeah, I'll take a first stab at that. And then because there's the businesses that we're working with some of the pilot projects that Vaughn mentioned, but then there's also CBEs that have been involved with the project and will continue to be involved in the project, hitting the district, the percentages, right? That's really important. And maybe Jim can touch on sort of CBE requirements. For the 10 businesses that we're working with right now, or we just kicked off this larger project in this, we're intentionally focused on a geographic scope of 4 blocks between Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue and 13th Street. And we worked with the Anacostia Business Improvement District to help identify those 10 businesses. So those businesses have been identified. I'm happy to sort of share a list of who they are because they all need to be in that corridor. We're trying to do a deep dive in there. But as Vaughn mentioned, if we're successful, or as we're successful, not if, as we're successful, we're hoping to turn the corner and go up Martin Luther King Jr. Avenue and continue this work to provide the free technical assistance and cash grants. And if there's a particular business that you have in mind, after this, both Vaughn and I are around, please come up and sort of chat with us. Jim, can you take the CBE?
Yeah, and as we've been working through the entire design from feasibility study through concept and now in through final design, we've been meeting a 35% CBE goal with regards to the design as we've been working through that with the OMA and Olin team and executing that through final design now with many of those consultants that are still the same from the beginning.
I would say one other thing that Vaughn just reminded me, the small business kiosks that they were working with, we just received last week news that we're have funding to build it, which is really cool. So we're going to start construction with the River East Design Center this fall, and it'll be up. The idea is that this will be up the kicking off on May 20th, 2023 for our Anacostia River Festival. We're looking at working with one small business, one east of the river Black-owned business per month from May through December. There's going to be an application process that we're going to go through, and none of those have been selected because we've been focused on sort of designing the kiosk itself. And so again, if there's small businesses you have in mind that want to use or interested in the program, please let us know. And in the end of this year, early next year, when we start rolling out that application process, would love to have them apply.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry. On the thinking through the trail on the Navy Yard side, are there any departments for the Navy Yard or the Department of Defense to fix those blocks right now? I know that we're doing a lot of work right there, and so just thinking about biking over there and up and down, yeah, it's really dangerous. And yeah, is there any work, or have we had those discussions yet to see if they're willing to invest something? Or
if technically one isn't supposed to bike on that route, I think
this is
whatever
true.
I'm
This is
guilty. I'm
true.
going to say this like in front of everybody. I'm guilty. I do that too. But I think one of the reasons is because it's really easy to get your wheels caught between those concrete blocks, and I've almost wiped out a couple times. If that development goes through, which at least the idea is to refurbish a good section of that, as well as to activate some of the docks that are out there with green spaces. I mean, they're just going through their EIS right now, but that's certainly part of the plan. So at least as I understand it.
Did anyone else have a question? No. Okay. So thank you for joining us in person. I think this is we had the Anacostia River Festival, but this is maybe the second event that we have had back in person. So we do appreciate you taking the time to come and be with us, and also just to share your thoughts and questions. And as I said before, please stay connected with us. You can visit bridgepark.org/email if you would like to sign up for our email blast. And we also hope to see you back here on October 8th for a beautiful evening where we highlight our Bridge Park plots and the Ark Farm. And best of all, as Scott puts it, roasting s'mores over an open fire under the stars. So we hope to see you again, and thank you for coming. Have a good evening.
Thanks, everybody.